Welcome to the 700 Club. Let's go over to the CBN newsroom for today's top stories.
Thanks, Gordon. Western New York continues to dig out after that storm dumped more than 4 feet of snow and left dozens dead. Nationwide, the storm system stranded thousands of holiday travelers. However, as Heather Sells reports, the ferocious weather brought some communities closer together.
In Buffalo, New York State and military police are arriving to help enforce a driving ban.
I'm begging, stay home.
More than 30 people have died in the region, succumbing to bitter cold, power outages, and impassable streets that have blocked emergency care. Police have also responded to people looting stores across Buffalo, prompting multiple arrests. The mayor calling the looters the lowest of the low.
They're not looting foods and medicines. They're just looting items that they want.
Still, inspiring stories abound. Neighbors helping each other shovel out.
If you need shelter.
A barber opening his shop to those who need a place to stay. And a group of friends on snowmobiles, saving dozens of stranded people.
These guys were helping people, and he said he knew a place he could take us, and he will help us out. I guess God's the angel.
Across the country, severe cold has blanketed many regions with snow and ice, and it's played havoc with Christmas travel. On Tuesday, another day of canceled flights as Southwest Airlines called off more than 2,500. The freezing temperatures have also upended water systems. In Jackson, Mississippi, long lines for water after bitterly cold temperatures froze pipes. And in Ohio, a pipe burst flooded the State House in Columbus. More than 60% of the U.S. population has faced some kind of winter weather advisory or warning during this Arctic blast. Temperatures are forecast to rise in the coming days. That is good news for some, although authorities warn flooding could hit areas already hard hit. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Next, a border policy limiting the flow of migrants into the country will stay in place indefinitely. The Supreme Court ruled Title 42 can remain until both sides argue their case and the justices issues a ruling. Now, the pandemic-era policy allowed migrants seeking asylum to be removed from the U.S. while their cases are heard. It allowed some 2.5 million asylum seekers to be sent back. The Biden administration planned to lift the policy last week, but 19 Republican-led states sued to keep it in place over concerns that ending Title 42 would lead to an overwhelming surge at the border. Homeland Security warned that up to 18,000 migrants might cross every day. The court will hear the case in February and issue its ruling later in the year. Congress begins its new next session next week, and one newly elected Republican is already under fire. House Democrats want New York's George Santos barred from taking office. This over reports that he'd lied about significant details of his life, including education, religion, and employment history. CBN's Abigail Robertson reports.
Long Island Congressman-elect George Santos admitted this week that while he lied about things like his education and work experience on the campaign trail, he insists it won't deter him from serving his constituents.
I'm not resigning. I have to leave Congress, Guy. It's going to be by a pink slip by the voters November of 2024.
In an interview with the New York Post, Santos claimed, "We do stupid things in life," while trying to explain his blatant dishonesty. Santos claimed to have received a degree from Baruch in 2010, though he now admits he didn't graduate from any institution of higher learning. He also fibbed about working for Goldman Sachs and Citigroup, confessing to the Post he never worked directly with either firm. In a since-deleted bio on his campaign website, Santos stated his mother was Jewish, while describing himself as a proud American Jew to Jewish and pro-Israel leaders.
My grandparents survived the Holocaust, so these regimes of socialism, Marxism, they don't work.
Santos told the Post he's clearly Catholic and claims he only said he was Jew-ish. Santos made history when he became the first openly gay non-incumbent Republican to be elected to Congress. He told USA Today in October that he's a gay married man who never had an issue with his sexuality in the last decade. He did not disclose, however, being previously married to a woman for about 5 years until 2017. While Republicans have remained silent on Santos, House Democrats are calling on him to resign or for the new GOP House majority to hold a vote to expel him.
We need answers from George Santos. He appears to be a complete and utter fraud.
Campaign finance disclosures are also raising questions about how Santos quickly accumulated wealth ahead of the 2022 campaign. Fellow New York Congressman Richie Torres is urging the House Ethics Committee to look into where Santos made his money, saying where there's smoke, there's fire. Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Turning to the war in Ukraine, where that country's military forces are advancing against a Russian-held city in the east. One Ukrainian official predicting that if the eastern city of Kremna falls, then the Russians' entire line will crumble. President Zelensky says conditions in frontline territories are, quote, difficult and painful. At least 9 million people are without power due to Russian strikes on power plants. Well, billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars have been poured into Ukraine. That has many Americans concerned about where all that money is going. Our Chuck Holton went to Kyiv to find out if their contributions really are making a difference.
Since the beginning of March, the U.S. has pledged close to $70 billion in military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine to help it defend against Russia's unprovoked attack. While that might sound like a lot, much of it is slated to be spent in future years, all the way out to 2030.
There's a lag between the time that Congress appropriates funds and the time when those funds actually get spent. The year up to September 30th, that totaled about $8 billion that had actually been spent of the total $68 billion that had been appropriated.
I traveled to the front lines to see where all this aid is going. My escort was Andrew Gota, one of President Zelensky's advisors.
We want to be open and transparent. We're ready for any control, any extra control, for any special officers that came to us to check the situation.
Gota regularly travels to gauge what's needed on the front line. Then he approaches charities in the U.S. that can help.
I should fill some application. What I need exactly, how much of these devices I need, and for whom. Who is an end user of these devices. After the USA charity organizations approved my request, we had another level of control on the border. So our Customs and Border Protection Service will check these documents and will check the end user of these devices. So we have multi-level control of even for the humanitarian aid. You can imagine what kind of control we have for the heavy weapon.
I've been covering this conflict here in Ukraine since about 3 weeks before the war started back in February. And in that time, I've learned a lot about Ukrainian people. And first of all, they're very patriotic, really love their country. But more than that, they see this conflict as something a lot larger than just between Ukraine and Russia. As a matter of fact, the aid that they're receiving, they believe is less of a handout and more of a partnership.
It's not a charity to support Ukraine. We are not asking this money. We are trying to protect freedom, democracy of all civilized world. I think that the problem which Russia created for all civilized wars and the price which other country pay supporting Ukraine is uncomparable. To cure this disease is to help Ukraine to win this war.
So far, there has been scant evidence of corruption in the process.
We don't see much weapon in the black market, for example, because everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to fight with the enemy.
The military assistance Ukraine received is making the difference between success and failure on the battlefield, especially in the early days of the conflict.
This American aid, 155 millimeters, 155 calibers, saved Kyiv, that's true. If we got some aid from the USA, from other country, of course we spread it immediately. We spread it immediately to the front line.
Ukrainian soldiers often bring up Afghanistan and ask Andrew whether the U.S. will abandon them as well. They're concerned that if support ended now, Ukraine's recent victories could quickly be reversed and people's suffering multiplied.
I think that the situation is a challenge because of winter, which is already in Ukraine. It's already freezing temperatures. So in response to that, the United States is going to continue to do everything we possibly can, working night and day to provide help on winterization needs, to provide as much air defense and other security assistance as possible, and to also help Ukraine repair its energy infrastructure so people aren't in the cold and dark and without water.
Either way, Ukrainians are committed to fighting to the end.
We don't stop. We never stop. Winter, summer, spring, autumn, fall. We don't stop. We will fight every day, every hour, at night and during the day.
From Kyiv, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.